Whew. All right. We just left. Would you call that a hoarder house?
Yes, it's a hoarder.
It's a hoarder house. I'm glad I decided to film a vlog today because we're talking about quite a few interesting properties and some creative financing options that I'm going to try to explore. But first, let me show you guys what we just left. I'm Lili. Nice to meet you. Thank you very much. This is my brother.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Okay, now just know that it's filled everywhere in the house.
Okay.
So wait till you see. Had the last guy open this because I couldn't open it.
2 master suites.
It's so hard to see beyond over.
Yeah.
And I mean, it is kind of dirty, but it just got clean and scrap.
Right. So
Alright, going in there.
this is another bedroom.
Yes, it could be a bedroom. There's 2 closets.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna try. I'm not gonna mess anything up. I'm just
Okay.
gonna see if I can find out what's under the carpet. We got wood, folks.
Really?
I mean, you got bugs and rats and poop and stuff, but you got wood. I mean, there are a lot of clothes, but this is a big old house.
It is. She told me I can shop in it, but I don't. Her wig right there. It looks like a rat or something.
Yeah. There is some cool stuff in here. I will
There
say.
is, and I mean the house is cool. I mean, a lot of these are just sloppy things.
Yeah, it just needs some loving. This was one of our leads that came off of. So the way we find leads, one of the ways is to pull a list from PROPSTREAM, and PROPSTREAM has like this list stacking feature. You can basically select criteria that you want to pull people's contact information for. So this one is off of, a high equity and active lead list. High equity and active lien, meaning this person has a lot of equity in the property, so their mortgage balance compared to the mortgage balance is pretty low compared to the value of the property, and they have an active lien. And she told us, I think it's a mortgage lien, that she's behind on her mortgage, and so that shows you there's motivation to sell. And this property was actually one that could have been found in multiple ways because there's a for sale by owner sign out front. So we could have driven by while driving for dollars and found it, but that's not how we found this one. What we did is we cold called after we pulled that lead. We cold called the person and we sent them a piece of mail. Now on the cold call, they never answered our call. But when she got the mailer, she gave her real estate agent, even though it's an off-market lead, she does have a real estate agent representing her. So she gave her real estate agent our number and her real estate agent called us. So that's who we just walked through the house with.
It definitely needs some new little thingies.
Now, why would somebody be off market and have a real estate agent? And she said it's because she only wants to pay one side of the commission.
I mean, if she'd let me put on the MLS, we might be able to get it. But
Does she just not want people through it?
she doesn't want to pay 2 commissions.
So if you've been studying or watching my channel for a while, you know that in a typical real estate transaction, the seller pays both sides of the commission, meaning they pay their own agent, their seller's agent, they typically pay them 3%. And when somebody comes to buy the property, they usually have an agent as well, a buyer's agent. And the seller is responsible for paying both of them. The buyer typically does not pay commissions. So she said, I don't want to put it on the MLS because I don't want to have to pay a full 6% in commission. I only want to pay you the 3%. You're really earning your keep on this one. It's gonna work. Now, as I said to the agent, she's working pretty hard for just 3% because not only is she helping me as a buyer because I don't have an agent, but she's also helping to get this house cleaned out. Like she's helping her have a garage sale.
We're having a big garage sale in a couple of weeks to sell some of it. So called Uncle Benny's silent auction. It's a garage sale silent auction.
Okay.
So far, we've taken a lot of good, premium stuff there.
Emotionally helping her work through all of the turmoil she kind of feels with getting rid of stuff.
Well, she wants me to take the clothes. She goes, "Mom, how do you get on my clothes?"
So yeah, it's a very interesting situation. And the reason I wanted to bring you guys along for this one is because I actually think this might be our first wholesale. And this is actually a strategy that I first heard about from Max Maxwell, where instead of trying to wholesale this deal, where I just get under contract and assign the contract to someone else, or trying to flip it myself, do the renovation, keep it as a rental, or resell it, wholesale is kind of in between, where we would buy it, do some very minor fixing up on it. I'll kind of put in there, you know, what our offer is and just let her know we'll not include fixing anything like the soffit or the fascia or the AC
Okay.
units or anything like that.
Okay.
Just clean it out, take what you want, she can leave the rest. And then put it on the MLS to not sell to an investor, but to sell to somebody who wants to live there. And there's a few reasons for that. One, it's a really big house.
Oh, this is a big house. It is a big house. It's in the neighborhood.
It's really big. And what did you just ask me about having the biggest comp?
You have the biggest house on the block. How do you get your comps?
Exactly. It's just hard when you have the biggest house in the neighborhood, though, right?
I know it is.
Because then you never know how far above
It's gonna
the
go.
others they're gonna
And
go.
if it,
The biggest house that's sold over here in the last year is 1,800 square feet. This house is over 2,300 square feet. So it's a lot bigger. And when you're running comps, let's think about the numbers. So that house that was 1,800 square feet sold for about $100 a square foot. Sold for about $180,000. She's saying, I want $100 a square foot as well.
I can't remember what the square footage is. You would think you could get 100 or 90 when you sell it. Yeah.
But when your house is that much bigger, now we're jumping from 180,000 to 230,000. And nothing in this neighborhood has ever sold for that much. And it's a hoarder house.
Okay, we're gonna go to the left here.
I mean, the other house wasn't a hoarder house. So obviously it's not comparing apples to apples because that house was in great condition and this one's not. Now she's saying she's gonna clean it out, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done even after it gets cleaned out. So when you have a house that is that big, it's hard to determine how much will it actually sell for. Yes, it's got more square footage, but it's also in bad condition, so it's tough to know what it would sell for, which wouldn't make me confident putting a bunch of money into it to renovate it to try to get a high ARV on the backside because I don't have any comps to prove what it might be worth. Does that make sense? Right, so then now I think, okay, I don't really want to flip it. I don't really want to BRRRR it and keep it as a rental because I'm not sure about the end value. And with the house that big, it's gonna be hard to keep as a rental because not that many people want like a 6-bedroom, 4-bathroom house as a rental. It's just, it doesn't fit the bill that well. So then you would have to flip it. And if you're gonna flip it, you gotta put even more money into it to bring it completely up to date, get rid of the green carpet, get rid of the ugly tile, completely revamp the kitchen. Like that's a lot of money to put into a property that you don't know how much it's gonna be worth at the end. And I always say comps equal confidence. Like if I have comps, I have confidence in what it could sell for. People always say, what do you do when you don't have comps? Well, I'm less confident in the deal, so I have to hedge against that. So I'm not gonna put a ton of money into renovating this property. I don't have the confidence to do that. But something I could do is do like a bare bones renovation to make the property livable and then sell it on the MLS, not for top dollar, just for what it's worth to someone who maybe wants to go in and live in it and maybe revamp it, do the bathroom, change the kitchen cabinets, you know, as they go over the next couple of years. And that's what a wholesale is. It's a combination of wholesaling it, because I'm not keeping it. Maybe I'll hold on to it for 30 days while I resell it, but I'm also putting it on the MLS, which is oftentimes for retail buyers or people who are gonna live in it themselves. So I think that could be a pretty interesting strategy. Let's say it could sell for that 180, right? We know something in the neighborhood sold for 180, even though it's smaller, it was nicer. So let's just say things balance out. We could sell it for 180. So if I sell for 180 on the MLS, I know I'm gonna have to pay those commissions. Let's say I pay 6% in commissions. I could probably get a little lower than that because I know some real estate agents would list it for me lower. But let's say I pay 6% commission, that's gonna be like $12,000. Let's say on both sides, I pay another $8,000 in closing costs. So now that's 20 grand that's coming out of that 180 I might be able to sell it for on the back end. So now I'm down to 160. Well, I do need to fix up some things. There's some big holes in the soffit. Looks like the AC unit needs to be replaced. Probably want to rip up that carpet, although maybe not. Maybe we leave the carpet. Maybe we put down cheaper carpet, something, right? We won't know until it gets cleaned out. You really can't see anything. There's like some leaky faucets, needs an exterminator. What else? I mean, that's pretty much it. Right, if we just want to do, just clean it up, get it ready to move in, and then sell it for that 180, which would be a super good deal for that much house for somebody. So if we did all of that, let's say that costs us another $15,000, right? So now we're not at 160, we're at 145. I can do math. We're at 145. And for our trouble, let's say we want to make 25,000. That takes us down to buying it for 120, right? So that on the back end, we can factor in all of those other things I just said and still come away with a $20,000 profit. Now, where do we get the 120 to buy it? We could possibly get a private loan. Then we'd have to work in the cost of the private loan, right? The interest, we would have to pay them back. So that would be something to consider. Maybe we can use a HELOC from one of our other properties, but that's gonna cost money, right? So it's all just kind of finagling the numbers. But now that I've seen it and I know what it might cost to kind of get into basic, ready to go on the market condition, I can work backwards from there and make an offer. So it's basically what we'll do. The offer will probably be somewhere around 100, maybe 105. There's so much that needs to be done, but we will offer to let her do the garage sale. She needs some extra time to get out of the property. That's another reason she doesn't want to do it in the MLS, because it's just a lot of stuff to get out of there. We'll get her a moving truck if she needs a moving truck.
I've been coming and loading my car with the stuff she wants. My
Does
bigger
she know where she's going to take it?
storage.
Okay. So with a moving truck out?
We will let her leave anything that she doesn't want to leave, doesn't want to take, so that she doesn't have to take care of paying for the dumping, et cetera, et cetera. So those are all things, and that's why you'll hear in the clip before, like, I'm asking some of those questions of like, so my question is she wanting to clean it up completely, fix everything that needs to be fixed, and get top dollar for it? Or is she wanting to be hands-off and make it as easy as possible?
She wants in between. Yeah, she'll get all of her crap out. I'm sure she can even just clean it.
Money is a motivator 100%, but a lot of times people have other motivators as well, like the ease of getting out of there, like, oh my goodness, how am I going to get through all this stuff, or how am I going to get this stuff to the dump, I have to pay for that, I need a truck, or it's going to take me 60 days to get out of this house instead of 30. Like, there's always things that the person may need in addition to just the money, and sometimes they'll be willing to take less money to get some of those things. So important points there to consider.
I don't think
We'll see what we can do. Hopefully we can make something work.
Okay.
I really like the neighborhood and I like the house. I mean, it's a cool house.
I mean,
Thanks so much for meeting
you
us.
bet. And I might have a couple more things coming up.
Yeah,
pretty
please
soon.
keep me in mind.
Okay.
And we'll come see anything you got.
Okay.
All right. It's nice
All right.
to meet you. Now, another creative deal that we're actually on the way to see right now is one that didn't come from cold calling. This one came from our direct mail campaign, which we pulled a list of multifamily properties, 5 to 50 units in our area from PROPSTREAM. And we had an owner of a 6-unit building call us back. And like I told my brother the other day, I feel like when people call in, they're like so low-key offended that you sent them a letter, but they want the offer. So it's like, okay, yeah, how you doing? And I actually, did I answer this call? He texted us, that's what he did. He texted the number on the thing, so it came to me. If he had called, it would have went to Hoarder, which I'll talk about in just a moment, because that's gonna be the third deal that we talk about today in terms of creative financing. But yeah, he called in and he was like, or he texted me, and then I called him and I was like, hey, yeah, we sent you a letter. Can you give me a little information about the property? He's like,
well, I don't really want to sell it, but you know, you sent me a letter, so you might as well make me an offer.
I was like, that's fine, I'd love to make you an offer. If you like it, great. If you don't like it, no problem, no hard feelings. But I gotta make the offer based off of something, so I need a little bit of information from you if you would like the offer. If not, we can leave it here.
Okay, yeah, what do you need?
Like, just being a little bit difficult, and it's an interesting dynamic. But the reason I needed that information from him is because when you have 4 units or below, the valuation of that property is based on comps. Just what we were saying. What have other similar homes in the area sold for, right? And you can kind of base the value of your property off of those. But when you get to 5 units and above, there's no more looking at comps. And it kind of makes sense, because if you're looking at like a 6-unit building or the 33-unit building we looked at a few months ago, how many other buildings exactly like that are in that same neighborhood and have sold in the last 6 months? Like, it doesn't really make sense to value those buildings based on comps. Instead, they're based on something called the net operating income. And what this does is it looks at the income the property makes from rent, from parking, laundry facilities, etc., minus the expenses that the property has. Do they pay the utilities? Are there shared common areas that have to be maintained? The lawn care, property management. But it ignores the mortgage expense. So if the owner has a mortgage payment, I'm gonna ignore that when I'm calculating the NOI. I'm not gonna count that as an expense. And we're actually heading to the 6 unit right now so that you guys can see it. So I look at the income minus the expenses, that gives me my NOI. From there, I divide the NOI by the market cap rate. And cap rate is hard to explain. I had to reread the same passage in the book like 8 times until I started to get it. But my understanding of cap rate is, this is very basic. Go read this book right here, it'll help you. But my understanding of cap rate is that the lower the cap rate, the better condition the property is in and the less room it has for improvement. It's already performing really well. Maybe there's no vacancies, it's a super nice property, no repairs needed, people love it, it's in a great part of town. That's gonna be a low cap rate. So I think of like a high-rise new built apartment building in the city, in the center of New York City, something like a 2% cap, right? On the flip side, the higher the cap rate, the worst performing the building currently is, but has more room for upside. So it might have a lot of vacancy, might need a lot of repairs. Let's say that would be like a 15% cap. So you have this spectrum. And this property, from what I can tell right now, is kind of in the middle. And in my market, cap rates are like 6% on the really nice end, 9% on the worst end, basically. And so we're not like in a super high-end market, but we're not like in a super low-end market. So if I took my NOI that this property has, and I think it's something like 40,000 is what he said the NOI was, divided by the 7.5% cap rate, that's gonna give me a valuation or a potential purchase price for the property, which in this case was I think like a 536,000, something like that. So I offered the seller a preliminary offer before I get to really dive in and get proof from all the financials, but I offered him 520,000. And he was much more polite after that. Because at first he was like all gruff and he was like, if you're gonna make a bottom feeder offer, get off my phone, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, you called me. Like, you could have ignored the letter if you didn't want to sell, but obviously there's some type of motivation there. But after that, he was much more polite. And he was like, well, you know what? I actually don't need or want the entire $520,000 right now because I would either have to pay a crap ton of taxes on it, or I would have to reinvest it into something else, or just keep it in cash, which we all know inflation is going up, so the value of cash is going down. So I said, okay, let's talk creative. Would you be open to seller financing? And seller financing would be him carrying the note for me, which I think about it this way. In order to buy this property, I would need to go to a bank and get a good chunk of that $520,000. This would not be a cash purchase. Now, when I go to the bank and get that money, they're gonna have a specific set of terms that they would require. Usually like a 25% down payment. We're about to drive to the property, I'll show you guys in a second. Just like a 25% down payment, a certain interest rate, a number of years that I have to pay that loan back, et cetera, et cetera. I would own the property, but the bank would own the mortgage or the note, which means if I don't pay them back, although I'm in charge of the property, if I don't pay them back, they get to come take the property. This seller does not have a mortgage on the property, which means he is open to hold the mortgage himself. So instead of going to a bank and getting the loan, I could get the loan from him. Not that he gives me any money, but I would give him a down payment and pay him every month for an agreed upon amount of time, and I would own the property. Now, the good thing about seller financing is for him, he gets to, one, not get that full $520,000 right now. Let's say he can get over the next 5 years, and he gets the tax benefit from that, and he gets interest on top of it. So not only would he get the $520,000, it would be at a certain interest rate, like 5% interest, for example. So he might make an extra $50,000, $100,000 in interest over the next 5 years in exchange for holding that note on the property. The benefit for me is that he is probably going to be less strict giving me that loan than any bank would be, right? Banks are usually require like 25% down payment. He might agree to 0% down. He might agree to 5% down, 10% down. It's literally just up to me and him. The interest rate, the terms of when I have to pay it back, all of that is negotiable when you're doing seller financing. So that is what we're looking at with this property right here. Let me show you guys what it looks like. So it's that brick building right there in the corner. And there's a few things I'm looking at. It is a flat roof building, which can be a little bit just more wear on the roof because rain and snow and stuff doesn't roll off as well. It's a brick building, which is really nice. I mean, it needs a little landscaping, but it's really not in bad condition. As you can see, this is why I would say it would be like middle of the road, 7.5% cap rate is what I would say. There's the front right there, and I'll show you guys some of the pictures I was able to find online from the last time one of the units was vacant. But all of the units are occupied right now. And then another really nice thing is that it's got a parking lot. So all of the tenants have, you know, secured parking, which is pretty cool. You might be thinking, so do I just hold that note from that guy forever and pay him back for the next 30 years? Likely no. Most people don't want to wait 30 years to get all of their money back. Likely be something like a 5-year balloon payment where I would pay him a certain amount every year for the next 5 years or every month for the next 5 years. But at the end of that 5 years, pay him the remaining balance. So then that goes to say, okay, how are you going to do that? Where do you get the money from in 5 years? And similar to the single family properties that we've been using cash out refinances on, you basically BRRRR apartment buildings. And when I was reading the BRRRR book, apparently this strategy has been used for far longer in apartment buildings than before it was ever used in single family. So it originated with apartment buildings. So like I said, you value the property by the NOI, income minus expenses. So in order to get a higher valuation in 5 years, I'm not worried about the renovation of the property necessarily because I'm not looking for comps. What I'm interested in is increasing that NOI by, one, increasing the income that the property makes, and two, decreasing the expenses that the property has. That way, the gap between them is bigger and my NOI is larger, giving me a higher value. Then once I have that higher value, I can do a cash out refinance, pay back old dude in full, and hopefully get the cash that I put into the deal for the down payment back as well. And some of the ideas that we have for just generally increasing income is you always want to look at, are the rents at market rate? I'm trying not to go and hike up rents on property, but find other ways to increase the income, such as this property has a laundry room, but the owner doesn't own the laundry machines. They are rented, and so he only makes like $50 a year from those laundry machines. But if we get rid of that rental company and we own and maintain the machines ourselves, that would increase the amount of income we could make for them. We can also put vending machines in the laundry room. We can put an ATM in the laundry room. Those types of things will help us to increase the income. And then decreasing the expenses is you also always just want to look at how well is this property being run. Are they paying too much for lawn care? Are they paying themselves too much as rental property managers, et cetera, and see where you can lower the expenses to raise the value of the property. So I ended up making the seller financing offer to him today. Hopefully he'll get back to me. We'll see what happens. We might have a 6 unit on our hands. Also, another thing we've been working on is we actually converted 2 single family properties into duplexes recently, and we're getting ready to do the cash out refinance on those so we can get all of our money back. That was a super fun process, and I know a lot of you out there want to get into multifamily investing. So it's really important that you start training your eye to see when you can legally convert single family properties into multifamily. And if you want to check out the video I did on it, it's going to be linked in the description. See you next time.